Okay, but what if they're not following your technical process, but they're actually finding waste, fraud, and abuse from a moral implication? That's actually a good thing. Now, I don't even agree with you that they're breaking any laws. I don't even agree that they're breaking any laws. These challenges are brand new. We have no idea how this is going to play out. You don't, I don't, but we have no idea if he's going to adhere to what the court is going to say. No, we don't have a good idea. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's not. We don't know for sure that Trump is going to just go, oh, I'm just going to Jackson the courts. The courts can enforce their own law. Like, that is speculation that's beyond the pale.
They've already done that. A judge has already issued a ruling saying they've already violated a TRO. So that's already happened to some extent. Now, how far will it go? Who knows? But they've already done exactly that. Doge does not have the legal authority to go in and unilaterally.
No, they're giving a legal challenge back, Destiny.
They're giving a legal challenge back. Read the TROs. Their response was, "Oh, we're going after fraud," and the judge laughed and he said, "This isn't even a response."
That doesn't. Wait. So yes, they are. Not only are they going to respond to this, but they're setting up for legal challenges to go back the other direction. This is obvious. And by the way, this is part of the process. Like, I don't know why you just pretend like these politicians don't expand their offices all the time. And that's what the judicial does, right? It comes in, it'll rein it in. It'll say this is constitutional. It's not constitutional. You can do this. You can't do this. They do it all the time. There's so much precedent for this, in fact.
The last time Andrew Wilson was on Piers Morgan, he was completely owning Cenk Uygur, pretty much blowing him out of the water. And I don't think Cenk Uygur will ever be able to recover after that. And now Andrew Wilson is here to debate destiny. This should be pretty good. Let's see how this goes down.
I don't think anybody can disagree that there is like a section of MAGA or far right people that are racist in the United States. But I would say that this is a small section, and I don't think that it's worth focusing on. I think that progressives especially have this tendency to over exaggerate. I mean, we were all on the internet when people were hunting every single person who made the OK symbol and saying that they were like some kind of closet Nazi or whatever during the Rittenhouse era. So, there are going to be racist people everywhere. But if you want to attack MAGA and you want to do it through the lens of they're racist white supremacists or whatever, I mean, most people, obviously MAGA is not going to care for a variety of reasons, and they shouldn't. And even most people that are kind of like looking from the center or even from the center left are going to be like, well, I don't really know if I feel this way. Like, MAGA kind of seems more colorful than they even have been in the past in terms of conservative movements. You could just look online and see that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of those types of attacks towards that, I guess, ideology, towards that camp.
You're sounding very reasonable today, Destiny. You're right.
I'm a very reasonable person, Piers. Okay.
You know what's funny is that on one of the recent Destiny videos that I did, I said that he sounded a little bit more reasonable. He doesn't come off as much of a douche as he usually does. And someone left a comment saying it's because he knows he has to be careful with what he says because of the whole lawsuits going on with him. And I wonder if that's what this is. Because, yeah, this isn't the first time where Destiny seems level-headed and reasonable. That old reasonable lefty that I've been hearing so much about has been making more appearances.
He is right. There are better avenues for which to attack the MAGA movement that would actually be more effective for progressives. Them utilizing this type of attack actually didn't do them very much in the way of good in this last election cycle. And you saw this from large progressive commentators, and this is all they did. Hassan Piker, among many others in the political commentary world, Bosch, other guys like this, they hyper-focus on the racial dynamic issues. And Destiny is right. MAGA doesn't care. And most of the supporters of Trump don't care. And most Republicans at this point don't care because it's so overused that essentially if you overuse a phrase like this or these kinds of talking points too much, their effectiveness just basically gets destroyed.
So let's move from making America holy again to making America healthy again. I mean, Destiny is a divisive character. I've got to say about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I'd heard all the stuff about him. So the first time I interviewed him, I was quite combative with him. And I was pretty charmed by him and quite impressed by him, I've got to say. And I've interviewed him 4 or 5 times since. And I really don't think we've got the devil here at the head of the health service. I think we've got a guy who has a very curious mind, constantly asking questions, which probably need to be asked about the nation's health. He's also a fine figure of a guy for 70 who seems to practice what he preaches. Are you in favor or against him?
Absolutely against him. I think that there's this talking strategy that people like RFK do that drives me insane. And apparently it works for people like you, where somebody will say something that sounds on its face reasonable, but if you think about it for like 2 seconds, it's the dumbest thing ever. Like the idea of
Yeah, it's funny. That's what the Democrats do. I've actually said that about the Democrats, where they'll say something like, oh, universal health care for all. And it's something that sounds good, but then if you think about it, it actually is not a good idea. There's been countless other examples too that I think are better than that one. But the Democrats have been doing that to manipulate the public and to get what they want for like the last, I don't know, however many or so years.
we need to be examining the safety of these pharmaceuticals. Like we need to look at the data. And it's like, well, yeah, of course. How do you think these things get passed? Or what do you think all the research is for? Like people like RFK will just say these things that sound good. Like, shouldn't we be doing research on long-term outcomes of, XYZ drug? And it's like, yeah, we should be. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, we do that. Of course we do. The FDA has a pretty good track record, all considered.
Andrew?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that Kennedy's as fine a choice as anybody. It's not like these positions have been filled by people in the past who are incredible at them. Not even on the progressive side, often moving into trans issues, trans healthcare, which was a big loser for progressives. I think ultimately, I don't see any problem with this guy getting in there. I don't think he's going to do anything harmful, and I don't really see any problem with them moving into these various agencies and trying to do various reforms. I don't even actually see why progressives would be upset by that. So Destiny might say, well, there's things that he says that are already being done. So he's going to go in and be somewhat redundant. But it's like, if you already like those systems and he's already going in to do the systems, I don't even see why that would be a problem.
Right. I mean, and Destiny, what I would say is that it always strikes me, if you ever see pictures from, say, Times Square or Trafalgar Square in London or Sydney or whatever it may be from the 20s, right? What's the one thing we all notice immediately if you think about it? There's no fat
They're all
people.
in black and white.
Well, there's no fat people, right? They just didn't seem to exist. Literally, they barely existed because people were far more mobile. They had far better diets to a large degree. And none of the processed crap had come into to ruin their lives. None of the sort of, television, internet and stuff, which makes people sit around all day. So very different way of living. And it really strikes me, if you look at those pictures today to then, the world, particularly in the sort of developed world, like America, like large swathes of Europe, we've just got very fat and unhealthy. And if all that he achieves in his term as health secretary is getting Americans to really think about that more, wouldn't that be a good thing?
I mean, I feel like he can luck his way into a couple of okay positions, but the problem is going to be what the focus is. And the problem is that the focus in some ways, I think, is kind of contrary to whatever MAGA believes in, although it's hard to know at any point in time what MAGA believes in. But for instance, I think that probably the number one thing that you could do to increase the overall health of Americans would be to bring down our average weight. And the best way to do that probably would be to find ways to restrict the ultra processed foods, the stuff that's like super high in sugar, whether that's through additional labeling or whether that's through taxes on ultra processed food or sugar. Either of those, I think, would be tremendously in a good direction. However, both of those things are an increase in taxes and an increase in bureaucracy. I don't know if MAGA is in favor of either of those things. If that was the sole focus of RFK, I would be more okay with it. But it's like this obsession with like the fluoride in the water and red dye number 3 and the heavy metal microplastics in our ball sacks and everything else. And these things are very like, they're worth looking at, but they're on the peripheral, they're on the edge.
What if he's right? I mean, the reason I say what if he's right is I remember through COVID, for example, all sorts of definitive statements from doctors and scientists, which often turned out to be complete baloney. What if he's actually right about this stuff?
He can be right. So first of all, most of the statements that were said by the people on the other side were completely and totally incorrect relating to COVID and vaccines. There were no mass deaths. There were no mass injuries, vaccine injuries. There were no microchips planted in us. There were no permanent vaccine passports. There still isn't any proof that it was created in a laboratory. Like all of those things that are not being correct. But insofar as him being right, I'm saying that like it might be the case that microplastics or red dye number whatever could be bad for us or could even be carcinogenic, maybe. But these are like 2%, 3% issues. Like 80% is if you could bring people's weight down on average by helping our diets, it would be so much more impactful. And I don't see how you do that without increasing the bureaucracy, because you have to be anti-capitalist a little bit. You've got to start taxing certain things. You've got to target certain types of foods in order to change people's food consumption habits.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, it's a fine.
Destiny is always acting like, well, we're going to have to tax more in order to accomplish these things. I don't think that's going to be true for in all these cases. Maybe it might make some foods more expensive because if you make a regulation where you can't use certain ingredients or what have you, then yeah, it might make the prices of things go up. But I mean, I don't know. Like, what's the difference between this and then like starting to charge 10 cents for plastic bags because of the climate change? At least like our weight problem here in America and heart disease being a major problem here in America, at least that's a tangible problem that we could actually fix. Where climate change is just throwing money at a problem which has no evidence of showing that even if we did all these things that they want us to do for climate change, it wouldn't even do that much. Like one thing I always hear is that like our bread like has a lot of sugar in it. Like there's something in our bread that makes us like fatter than compared to other countries. And personally, I've noticed that whenever I go on like low carb diets or when I just cut out bread, I lose weight. Like I lose weight without even having to exercise or anything like that. So I think there's something to that bread thing. You know, as far as Destiny's saying with the taxes and stuff, the Democrats want us to they want to raise our taxes and have us throw money at useless crap. I think if our taxes went up, but our bread was much better or whatever it is just much healthier for us, I don't think it will be a huge issue. What do you guys think about this?
Between being relentlessly critical of health institutions and accepted norms and science and so on, and getting to a place where, if you're not careful, public confidence in all of those bodies collapses, and then you start to have serious health issues.
Yeah, that's true. And this is part of the polarization in the United States. Destiny brings up this point. He says, well, these are kind of tangential issues, microplastics, things like this. But the truth is, if we have states that have done restrictions on things like this, they've restricted sugars, they've restricted some processed foods. It does very little to mitigate the problem. I'm reminded of an article I read not too long ago about Japan, where the Japanese don't have the same epidemic when it comes to obesity that we have here. The gal who was there doing the article made a great point. She said she thought the kids there were trolling when they said their favorite food was broccoli, celery, things like this. But when it was investigated, it turns out they were taught that those are the good foods to eat and nothing else is the good food to eat. So in other words, there's national propaganda around the idea of health and things like this. Instead of moving towards restrictions like Destiny's proposing, I would move more towards national propaganda. But progressives are very wary about moving towards propaganda. I don't know why, even though now propaganda itself has a negative connotation. I'm just saying the word propaganda because people understand what it means, right? Like a national campaign for something like this could be very effective the same way they do it there. What's not effective, though, is restrictions. That doesn't seem to do very much. At least it has not so far.
Thank you, Andrew Wilson. I made a video. One of my videos went really viral. And in that video, I said propaganda can be a good thing. And then a bunch of people roasted me in the comments for it, saying, what? How dare you say propaganda is a good thing? What? What are you talking about? But this is the type of propaganda I'm talking about. Like, yeah, propaganda has a negative connotation, but it can be used for good things. Propaganda isn't just inherently a bad thing. It's not just naturally a good thing. It's a tool that could be used for good or it could be used for bad. And there are some instances like this where it can be used for good. So thank you, Andrew Wilson.
Responsibility has got to be massively reinforced, just generally, right? It's all very well blaming.
Well, that would be part of a national campaign, though. In order to do that,
I agree. But you do actually, like when I see some of the food that parents give their kids, not just in America, but we have it in the UK as well. We've got a massive obesity problem here. And it's like, where's the parental responsibility to stop shoving horrible...
Yeah, but then we have to look at other things progressives don't want to look at, like, alternative family units, single motherhood, the intact family, things like this, which all feed into the idea of how kids are even nourished at home. Like, these are all interconnected things. And it's not so fun then if you're running a national campaign to say, fathers should stay in the home. That's good for the family. That's good for the kids' nourishment, things like this. You know what I mean? Suddenly, that's why they tend to steer away from that type of public discourse, at least at the governmental level, even though for the health of the nation, probably would be quite good.
So, Destiny, your sheer progressiveness is going to stop any solution being achieved.
I'm a deeply unpopular person with a variety of people. I have no problems talking about attacking a particular problem from a multitude of angles. I think that you can talk about what goes on in the household as well. However, I think that the culture, writ large and what's available is also a really challenging thing to deal with. If you've had a kid and that kid is going to school, the thing that makes that kid want something more than anything else isn't just something being available. It isn't just, someone on the internet offering it. It's when other classmates have that thing. As soon as you start hearing, hey, Bob or Jane, their parents let them do that, or they have this thing at school. Well, now all of a sudden you're competing against all of the other kids in class. And then these types of pressures when your kid is outside of your supervision are almost impossible to overcome. One thing that is kind of irritating, I guess, is I feel like there was a big push to have kids eating healthier in schools a while ago, but everybody made fun of her for it. It was led by Michelle Obama when it came to making healthier foods in
she
schools
was
and
right.
high schools.
I agree.
Yeah, and it seems like Republicans lit her up like crazy for that. And I don't know. I think that, we can talk about healthier food in the household. We can talk about healthier food at schools. Like I think that everybody should be on board with it because things like obesity, being overweight, is one of the worst things that you can do for your health.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was out in Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks ago, and they've got a national campaign to get people out doing exercise 3 times a week. And they've got a very young population, like 70% are under 35. And it's been very popular, and as a result, more and more young people in Saudi are playing sport, for example, than were ever playing before. And that
we
is
also
a
have
natural
physical education standards here, Piers. We have physical education standards set down by the government here for years, and those were rolled back due to the idea of fat shaming, due to the idea of my kids can't do this,
which is all bullshit.
Et cetera.
I agree.
It's all bullshit. And the thing is like that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about national campaigns for this. We can bring in exercise standards. We can bring in enforcement mechanisms for those standards starting at a young age. Destiny makes a good point. It is valid that if you're in school and you're a kid and the other kids have donuts, you're probably going to want a donut. You don't want to eat your broccoli, right? But there's an aspect of social shame that happens with patriotism and aspects of social campaigns and culture that can be actually done from the top down that we see in other nations, including what you're talking about right now. Just something as basic as, okay, physical education, now we're going to actually start taking it seriously. There's 2 hours of it a day instead of just the 30 or 40 minutes of you throw dodgeball at each other, right? I think that these are very valid things that we should look at.
Yeah, I agree. Let's turn to feminism. So Donald Trump has been lauded as the great new feminist of the United States. This comes from his executive order banning trans athletes in women's sport. Let's take a look at him, surrounded by grateful women and girls as he did this.
If you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay, do you want...
I don't think I've ever seen a finer feminist, Destiny.
I mean, this is like classic Republicans. Like Donald Trump tweets out at 4 a.m. that he's going to make the sun shine, and then at 6 a.m. the sun comes up and everybody worships him for it. I'm pretty sure, didn't the NCAA already roll back a lot of the trans participation in sports in the United States? And then I feel like we've already seen like the Olympic make moves against it. Like we've already seen in your country, in the United States, across the world, people have kind of like rolled back a little bit on a lot of the trans youth, especially the medication stuff.
Yeah, but you said the phrase there. When you say it's been a little bit and it's been piecemeal, sport by sport and age groups and so on, what Trump has done with one sweep of his pen is say no more of it at all, right? There will be no more trans athletes in women's sport, period. Now, I personally think this is absolutely the right thing to do. I think it's become the new doping, where people who have an unfair advantage have been, beating women, removing women from women's teams in, say, the Olympics and so on, actually beating up women, as we saw in the Paris Olympics, where somebody reportedly banned from the World Championships with male chromosomes literally beat up one female opponent so badly she quit after 40 seconds in the ring. So I do think this is a really important thing. Do you agree with him?
I don't think this is a very important thing. I don't even know if he can enforce this through executive order. Like, I don't know if this is going to be like some kind of Title IX challenge or whatever. I don't know what the courts are doing with this right now. It's just, I just don't think this is very relevant in the overall scheme of U.S. or world politics right now. I mean, if people don't want women competing with trans women, especially at the college level and beyond, I don't really have a problem with that. I never really had a problem with that. I don't know if these two groups of people should be competing with each other. And this is like a blip on the grand scale of things, I think.
You know what's interesting, Andrew? I've talked to quite a few on the left since the election. They've moved from the position before the election. I'm not saying Destiny was one of them. I can't remember, and you can clarify if you want, Destiny. But a lot of them are like, absolutely, trans women should be allowed to compete in women's sport. Blah 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 blah. And Biden and Kamala Harris supported this with actual policies endorsing it. And now the position is, you know what? Nobody cares. It's a thing. I don't have a view. I don't have a view. And I think it's because, to their shock and horror, the single most effective political ad of modern times turned out to be that trans ad that Trump did, ending with Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you, but also including this issue of women's sports and women's safety and the issue of putting, I mean, as we had in England, in Scotland, actually, a male rapist who suddenly identified as a woman and got put in a women's prison. It cost the First Minister of Scotland her job. I think it's a big issue, far bigger than Democrats want to admit. And it's interesting, the narrative has changed from we're all in favor to actually it's just a small thing, we don't care about it.
Yeah, this has been a major setback for LGBTQ, period. The trans issue has been the entry gateway for the one of the most brutal attacks against the left in modern times. And all you really have to do is just ask basic logistical questions like, okay, which prisons do they go to? You know what I mean? We were past bathrooms. We were into prisons. And can children get gender reassignment surgery? Things like this. This has always been a very, very unpopular position for leftists, but they can't really back away from it because the T got attached to the LGB, right? So they could never really back away from it. They've had to kind of defend it tooth and nail. To Destiny's credit, he's always had a more nuanced position on this of I don't care, at least to my knowledge. But ultimately, this is not popular for them. It's never been popular for them. When you're talking about what Trump is doing with the gender binary, I somewhat disagree. Not that he, the thing I agree with is that he proposed at a government top-down level. The United States only recognizes two genders. Now he means sexes, male and female, right? That's what he's alluding to there. But I do think it actually was very punishing for feminists to have fought all those years for their sports teams and then have men just go in and kick the holy shit out of them, right? So that actually mobilized, well, but I mean, it mobilized a lot of those feminists to move away from the left because they were like, wait a second, this actually wasn't the liberation we signed up for, right? We spent all this time fighting for this. And now you can just basically put on a wig and go break all of our records. I mean, it's just a huge loser for the left. And
I agree.
Yeah, transgenderism is just patriarchy with extra steps, pretty much. It's as if they were actual misogynists that were like, that found the loophole. We're like, well, if I just say that I'm a woman and I'm transgender, well, then I could do all these things and dominate women in these areas. And go into women's spaces, be a creep, all these things. It is just patriarchy with extra steps. I want to address Destiny here. Destiny just going to the go-to with the Democrats, now that they know it's a losing issue, now all of a sudden they're not fighting for it as hard. Again, I don't remember if Destiny was like a staunch supporter of this. Even if he wasn't, I know others that were like, well, I don't even see it as a big issue when they're the ones who made it a big issue. The progressives and the Democrats, they made transgenderism a big issue. They are the reasons why it became such a huge topic. It wasn't the right. The right didn't just see a transgender person one day and was like, whoa, this is horrible. We can't do this. Transgender people have existed for a very, very long time. However, we've only had issues with them, not just because they're existing, but because then they started fighting, because then progressive started to push for them to be like, well, they should be able to use women's restrooms. Well, they should be able to use women's sports. We should start teaching this to children. We should start transitioning to children. They got too carried away, much like everything that they're in support of. And the people just don't want that. And now that they realize the people just don't want that, now that they see that that was actually a losing issue for them, well, now they're like, well, I don't really even see what the big deal about it is. I mean, it's not a huge issue. It's not like it's happening everywhere. You guys made it a huge issue. What do you guys think about this so far? Sound off in the comment section below. Smash that like button if you're enjoying. Let's continue.
Destiny, I want to read you a quote from Andrew Wilson he posted this week. The most disappointing thing about feminists is how made out of glass they are. With the slightest pushback, they break. They demand equality until you talk to them like you would a man. It's actually comical. Would you concur with him?
I mean, that's everybody in politics. I mean, everybody's a snowflake depending on what the issue you're talking about is. I don't think that it's ever been a huge issue on most of the left when it comes to trans stuff. I think there's a vocal minority on Twitter and in colleges that scream about it. I think it seems like it's a huge issue because Republicans wanted it to be a huge issue. Even that commercial you were talking about was quoting something that Kamala said in 2019. So it seemed like some huge, ever-present issue. But I don't know. I guess I'm looking more towards like domestic policy, like things related to immigration or healthcare or what's happening right now in our executive branch or foreign policy. Like I thought the war in Ukraine was supposed to end on day one. I didn't know that we were signing up to be owners of Greenland and the Gaza Strip and the Panama Canal. These things I think are more important, at least to me, but I don't know.
If Destiny wants to sit here and say, well, the trans issue wasn't that big of a deal to me, yeah, he could say that if he wants to. But when they come on here and think that it was Republicans that made it a big issue, no, like I said earlier, it was them that made it a huge issue. It was them that made it a huge issue. It wasn't the Republicans. Did the Republicans start having trans bathing suits in the Target stores? Was it Republicans that started making Drag Queen Story Hour for young children? It wasn't the Republicans doing these things. It was the Democrats and the progressive left. They're the ones who pushed this. And we reacted to it and fought against it. Like, why can't Destiny, Mr. Reasonable Destiny here, why can't he just admit that?
Powered by what Republicans think.
I don't know. I got a 13-year-old daughter. And I got to say, if I was living in America, she was born there actually, but if I was living in America with a 13-year-old daughter who likes sport, I would be very exercised about this, and particularly if she had to share changing rooms with biological men who said, "I'm now a woman."
Yeah, I think I'd be more worried about my daughter like dying in Texas, like trying to get a medical procedure done because I'm pretty sure there've been 3 deaths now so far in Texas of young women that are pregnant that can't have medical procedures done because the doctors have to be so careful when they're doing them that they can't accidentally abort a fetus because then they'll be held liable for crimes. So I think these are things I'd be worried about more than
fake news. That's not what's going on. That's all fake propaganda from the left. No one is dying because they can't get smishmortions. There is no such thing as an emergency smishmortion procedure. And by the way, this is just, again, Destiny trying to I don't know. Well, I'm more concerned about this over here. Like, on one hand, his argument is saying, well, this transgender issue isn't that big of an issue. It's not really happening that much. But then he lists 3 deaths because of this supposed smishmortion issue. And all of a sudden, that should be more of a concern. Well, first of all, Destiny, I don't think he has a daughter. But even if he did, why would he be advocating that she get a smishmortion in the first place? But this is classic Destiny. Well, just Democrats in general, deflection. But I'm just more worried about important issues like this because they can't just say the Democrats were wrong or their side was wrong about anything.
Athletes, which are
more than a woman potentially being killed in a boxing ring by a trans athlete.
How many times has this happened?
Well, it hasn't yet, but it will do if it carries on.
Exactly, but it already has happened with the abortion thing. So that's what I'm more worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, but children's gender reassignment surgery, that is something which has been on the table for a long time. That's one. And two, when you're talking about this issue, it's kind of revisionist history, right? Now, suddenly the Democrats don't care, right? Oh, we it was always a vocal minority. No, it really wasn't. These were very, very public fights going on at the national level. And the reason is because this was a moral question. We're talking about a moral question from the viewpoint of the Christian right, which most right-wingers are Christians. You're actually assaulting their religion. You're assaulting their idea of what moral grounding even is. So to them, it's a huge deal. For Destiny, who has a completely different moral prism, it's really not a big deal, right? He doesn't really care about it. It's not that important. But to the average person, at least to the average right-wing conservative who's a Christian, it's a huge deal. The assault of the moral foundation is something they're going to take issue with. It's going to be one of their top priorities. So to say that Democrats were not fighting tooth and nail on behalf of trans inclusiveness, including in sports and everything, it's just insane revisionism. Of course,
yeah, they absolutely were. I mean, I look at someone like Well, look at someone like J.K. Rowling, who got absolutely, destroyed by the woke brigade for standing up for women's rights to fairness and equality. Now everyone lauds her for her heroic stance, but at the time, most women understandably put their head under the vicious parapet and didn't want to engage, and that left people like her out on their own, getting completely killed by people who profess to be the Be Kind lobby. And talking of which, I wanted to play you this, Destiny, because it really annoyed me. Not because it's a comedian making a joke, that's absolutely fine, nor that I want her banned or cancelled or any of those things. Just about the blatant hypocrisy of what we're about to hear. This is Chelsea Handler talking about Melania Trump.
I am your DEI host, Chelsea Handler. It was a huge year for biopics, a complete unknown about Bob Dylan, about Maria Callas, and Honora about Melania Trump.
Now, Destiny, what she's doing there is calling the First Lady a hooker, okay? She's perfectly entitled to say that. But she would never have done that joke, and nor would any comedian have ever done that joke about a Democrat First Lady at an award ceremony. Ever. So my question is, are the Democrats, again, is it one rule for them, one rule for everybody else? And before you do the Republicans do other stuff, I know they do. And it just seems to me she would never have done that, and nor would any comedian if it was a Democrat First Lady.
This should be good because Destiny can never handle being pressed about this. Like, well, how about taking responsibility for what your side does? Well, I'm not saying Destiny should take responsibility for everything his side does, but what I mean is actually calling out his own side for doing, or the Democrats for doing something that he's supposedly against.
I so don't care. I mean, like, what is the question? Was the joke too mean, or would she not have done it towards a Democrat? She probably wouldn't have done it towards a Democrat because those types of people all tend to lean left. That'd be my guess, right? The same way that if it was any right-leaning comedians, they're probably not going to go super hard on anybody on the right. I mean, that seems pretty obvious. If you're asking if it's a mean joke, I mean, yeah, it's a mean joke. Lots of people tell mean jokes. I don't know what kind of...
No, it's not about the mean joke. Well, I think it's not really a joke. It's just calling the First Lady a hooker is just vile.
Okay, the majority of... I hear a ton of conservatives right now that say that Michelle Obama and the wife of the French Macron are trans. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Candace Owens. She said, I would stake my entire career on Macron's wife being trans.
That's
so
not a ton of conservatives.
I don't know. Sure.
That's not a ton of
I see a lot of jokes about that Michelle Obama stuff being trans, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, the Michelle Obama dick jokes are very old and have been going on for a long time, right? I've seen those. You've seen those. And some of them were kind of funny. But the point is that with Chelsea Handler here, this is one of the most promiscuous women in Hollywood. Calling someone else a hooker is,
right,
by the way, hilarious. And also, you're talking about an entire party who is pro-sex work, pro-sex worker, pro-prostitution, pro-OnlyFans, does everything it can possibly do in order to enable those things. And then at the same time, they're like, oh, I can't believe the First Lady's a hooker. It's like, if it was anybody else who wasn't a Republican, they would probably glorify it. They'd be like, finally, our first prostitute First Lady. Like, I don't even understand why, the depths of the hypocrisy here is actually kind of outrageous, right?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, I think the joke has more to do with pointing out, I think, the hypocrisy on the other side. For instance, if you make a joke about, like, I don't know if we're allowed, like, for Steven Crowder being gay, that's a common joke that people on the left make. I don't think the joke is, haha, you're gay, so that's bad. I think the joke is more, you hate this thing and you are this thing, which would, my guess is going to be, I didn't see her whole performance. I don't even know the movie reference she was making, but that's probably the joke, is that you guys hate prostitutes and you are a prostitute. You hate gay people, you are gay.
No, that wasn't the joke. That wasn't the joke. She's just basically calling Melania Trump a hooker because she wants to imply that she's actually a hooker. And I think that the point I'm making is not that she's not entitled to do what I think was a crap joke. Of course she is. She's a comedian. It's the fact that you would never, ever see at an award ceremony in America, that I can ever remember, any comedian, right or left, make that kind of remark about a Democrat First Lady, a current First Lady, from a stage televised at an award.
Yeah, an award show that's supposed to appeal to both, like, left and right. Like, it's just supposed to be an award show. It's not supposed to have any political leanings. This wasn't done at the DNC event or something, or this wasn't done at some kind of Democrat dinner or something like that. This was done on a mainstream audience with a bunch of millions of people. Well, I don't know how many. I don't know how many people still watch these awards. I stopped paying attention to these a long time ago, even before all the freaking woke craps crept its way in there. But regardless, that's their point. Yes, we all know that all these celebrities lean left. But A, when was the last time they've had a Republican or right-winger host these things? And two, if they were to have these a right-winger host this, would they be allowed to make the same joke if Joe Biden was still president? Would they be able to make that same joke about Jill Biden? It shows the deep-seated rot in the United States when it comes to not only just our government, but the entertainment industry.
That's the distinction.
I haven't seen every award show, but like, didn't Stephen Fry do a couple of really brutal award shows where he was like throwing it out to almost everybody? Am I making this up, dude?
Well, he's English.
Okay. All right.
Let's move on.
I guess you guys got away with that, huh? Yeah,
no, I don't think that. I just don't think any of them have ever called a first lady a hooker. It just seemed to me, I don't know. It's all about crossing a line in comedy and all that. If you do it down the Comedy Store, you can do what you like. If you're on Twitter or X now, if you want to do things, okay, fine. I'm not going to say you should be canceled.
Well, I thought we learned when that guy made the island of floating trash Puerto Rico joke. I thought we learned there were no lines anymore. Why are we crying about her making this joke now?
Well, no, because the left went completely nuts. They thought he did cross a line.
Well, now we've learned.
They
There
did
is
go
no
crazy
completely
about
nuts.
it.
Now you're gonna joke about anything, I guess, right? We're all in that
Well,
world
you
now.
should be able to joke about everything.
Yeah,
It doesn't
sure.
make-
I mean, but
doesn't-
we
doesn't-
can also joke about her being one of the most promiscuous women in Hollywood, and that she's speaking out of both sides of her mouth here because she's been a big time supporter of sex workers, and now suddenly
I think that's a really
can't
good
believe
point.
She's a hooker. It's like, what are you talking
That's
about?
that's a very good point. That
Yeah, and also too, the Tony Hinchcliffe joke, that was at the Trump rally where Republicans are going to be watching. Second of all, yes, it wasn't a great joke in itself, but he later clarified it was about the huge trash is being dumped on an island. He wasn't calling the people their trash. He wasn't saying anything like that. He was saying that there was literal, it was being used as a literal like dumping ground for trash and garbage. So that's what he was trying to say with that joke. Here with Chelsea Handler's joke, she was just calling Melania Trump Lady of the Night. And no, we're not flipping out about it as much as when the left flipped out about the Tony Hinchcliffe joke. No one's trying to cancel Chelsea Handler for it. No one's really even that outraged. We're not even really surprised anymore, which is pretty sad. We're kind of just like, yeah, that sounds like something Chelsea Handler would say. Yeah, that sounds like the type of joke be made at one of these supposed classy award shows. So yeah, personally, I don't really care. It's just, it doesn't even surprise me anymore. But the reason why Piers and even Andrew are talking about it and trying to point it to Destiny is to show the hypocrisy. I mean, which we all know, Destiny is a huge hypocrite, and the Democrats are huge hypocrites in general.
used it as a slur, having professed to be the complete opposite about sex work. It's a very good point. Talking of stinking hypocrites and vile people, let's come to Kanye West, who started the week parading his wife, Bianca Censori, naked on the Grammys red carpet. We're looking at these images now. It was a deliberate derobing. Whatever. I mean, obviously any woman can do that. I thought it was all a bit cheap and embarrassing and pathetic, and I certainly wouldn't want to be doing that with my wife on a red carpet. What was far more serious to me was what then followed, which was literally just a bombardment.
You know, it's so stupid about Piers Morgan is that he's sitting there going, well, Chelsea Handler could make this joke. She's a comedian. I'm not saying this. But he is more offended by what Kanye West tweeted over the weekend than about Kanye West having his wife show off her naked body to a bunch of strangers in a big, pretty much around the world. I found that more offensive than I did anything Kanye West tweeted about over the weekend. Which, by the way, Kanye West did put up a tweet saying it was a joke about the whole whipping of Jews. He's tweeted since that was a joke, which a lot of people were trying to tell Piers. But Piers has to act like he's so shaken over it. Oh, he's literally shaking over these gross and disgusting tweets by Kanye West.
Horrifically anti-Semitic, racist comments. And then some pornography that he began flying out. One of his posts, sometimes you have to do it like the Pharaohs, make your Jews work for you, but watch them as close as you can, whip your Jews. What was interesting to me, Destiny, was ultimately Elon Musk, I messaged him directly on X publicly and said, you're going to just keep letting this guy do is he's breaking every single rule.
Message Elon
that
Musk
X
like a
has about
freaking
this kind of
wiener.
stuff. So the normal rules weren't applying to him, and he was doing it to 32 million people. So from the free speech argument is one thing. Actually, the X in-house rule book is another that wasn't being applied. So it seemed to be one rule for him, one rule for everybody else. But secondly, it was clearly, in my opinion, when you start talking about making Jews your slaves and whip them, you are actually now committing a crime. You're inciting actual violence against a group of people. That is a crime. It's not protected by the First Amendment. But what was interesting was Elon Musk only intervened and shut down the account for the NSFW pornography, which was completely legal. So, inciting people to violence against Jewish people was not considered to cross a line, but actually posting legal pornography was. I thought that was an interesting contradiction. What did you think?
He didn't shut down Kanye West's account over the pornography. He didn't shut down his account at all. Kanye West shut down his own account. He did, I think, start covering up the pornography tweets, but he didn't shut anything down. Also, Piers, show me the statistics that ever since Kanye West's evil tweets that we've seen a rise in anti-Semitic hatred. Show me the rise of whippings towards Jewish people that have risen ever since Kanye West's tweets.
Yeah, I feel like Kanye West, to me, it seems pretty sad because I feel like it's pretty obvious that he has mental issues relating to, what is he, bipolar or whatever? So I don't know if he has these manic phases where he just starts going crazy. And I don't know if he either surrounds himself with yes men and fires everybody else, or if there's just a bunch of people like the Candaces in the world who are just around him to take advantage of him. But I mean, clearly he has these mentally unhinged moments. I'm sure him being as famous and as wealthy and as successful as he is probably doesn't help with that mania. As for rule enforcement on X, I mean, there's a million things that could be said about that. People have had a lot of complaints about Elon coming on. Obviously, a lot of people from the left feel like the platform has gotten a lot more hateful. A lot of people have said that the platform's gotten a lot more spammy. There's a lot more bot activity and everything. Some people on the right over the H-1B fiasco were upset that Elon seemed to be banning people who previously would have been okay because of their political / racial stances, I guess, or whatever. So yeah, it seems like Elon's been having a little bit of trouble getting a handle on how he exactly wants to present X's moderation to the world.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I interviewed Kanye West a year and a half ago, and he denied having any mental illness, certainly denied having any treatment for any mental illness. And a lot of Jewish people in particular think it's just an excuse, that he just actually is a massive attention seeker. It was the Grammys. He's no longer a kind of, superstar rapper in people's eyes. He's just become this pretty unpleasant troll. And that he was doing all this to suck attention away from the Super Bowl, from the Grammys and so on. What do you think? Where's the truth about Kanye West, do you think?
I mean, he's done this before. I mean, he had a meme presidential campaign, right?
Yeah.
A total meme. Ultimately, some people took it seriously. Most people in the mainstream most certainly did not take it seriously. And yes, it's attention-seeking behavior. Stripping. First of all, this is not the first time this has happened. Remember that his wife also was in controversy because she had a cross on her buttocks, her naked buttocks, and then now she is at the Grammys, and what happens? He literally takes her clothes off, disrobes her. Humiliating, by the way, absolutely humiliating. I felt ashamed on her behalf. I hate saying that, right? But I just couldn't believe it, right? The disrespect towards your wife. That's, to me, in many ways unconscionable. When it comes to the X thing, though, the freedom of speech, what we're talking about here is this line in freedom of speech, which you're right. Elon Musk has not figured this out yet because it's not really possible to figure out. Is it okay, and this is what Kanye West is trying to say, is it okay to post as much, swastikas and I Heart Hitlers and, everything else on this as I want? And if it's not, why isn't it?
Yeah.
Why can't I?
I agree.
I thought this was about freedom of speech.
He's
pushing the number, and that drives attention to that account. And in many ways, it could have been a tactical move by Musk to say, well, maybe taking that down is not going to look good on me. And so when the time came when porn came up, he pushed it a little further, right? Okay, they're not banning my account. He's actually letting this go. How do we push the number a little bit further? Then he moves over to, okay, let's post hardcore porn. And then finally Elon Musk says, okay, enough. I tried to do the best I can. So Musk is trying to find this line. Kanye is purposely pushing the line so that he can test the limits of Musk and this free speech on X and try to point out hypocrisy, this kind of thing. But yes, I agree. It's for attention in a big way. I don't think anybody would disagree with that, even his supporters.
Yeah.
I think most people get Kanye West wrong because it's easy to say that, with Destiny, well, he's just mentally ill. And it's easy to say this is just being done for attention, like Andrew Wilson and Piers Morgan. I don't completely disagree with the attention thing. I do think some of it is done for attention to push whatever it is he's trying to sell. So yes, I do think some of it is strategy. But honestly, I think Kanye West, and this is why I respect Kanye West, is just he is who he is. And he's not afraid to be who he is. And a lot of people dislike him for it, and a lot of people love him for it. With that said, I don't agree with everything that he says or everything that he does. I'm not a fan, as a conservative, I'm not a fan of him parading, whether it's her decision or not, because a lot of people think he's forcing her to do these things. Again, we have no evidence support whatever it is. We're not in their private rooms together. We don't know private conversations they have. So I don't know whose idea it is for her to dress this way. If it's his idea, if it's her idea, and I don't know what reason they do it for, probably for attention. But I am not a fan of her just walking around naked everywhere, especially Kanye West is a father. She is a stepmother. I don't think that's setting a good example for his children. And so that's the major problem that I have with Kanye, is when he does things like that. But with all that saying, you don't have to completely agree with 100% what people say or do in order to be fans of theirs. And yes, sometimes it can be hard to be a fan of Kanye West. However, again, when I see all the things that he's saying or whatever, it's things that he's been saying for years, by the way. This is nothing new, a lot of the stuff that he says. I'm not talking about the racy jokes. I'm talking about when he's talking about people in power abusing their power and going after certain people they don't like. He's been saying that for a long time now. But I do have a level of respect for him for willing to push these boundaries, because sometimes these boundaries need to be pushed in order to really test, like, well, how come we can't say these things? Like, how come Kanye West can't sell a swastika t-shirt? I'm not going to be buying it personally, but how come as a culture we can't sell this? And how come people might be scared to buy it? I think these are important conversations that he's raising, whether he's intending to raise these or not. I've seen a lot of Kanye West interviews. I don't just see the stuff that makes headlines. I actually see the things he talks about. And so when I see people kind of just dismiss him as mentally ill, or he's just doing this for attention, I think both of those takes are for the most part wrong. And it's easy just to dismiss it as either one of those.
Let's turn to the Trump-Elon Oval Office presser. We've got a sort of this.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it.
Destiny, what did you make of that? Obviously, it's very unusual. You've got the richest man in America standing next to the President of the United States in the Oval Office by the Resolute desk. He's got his kid with him who's picking his nose. It's all a bit random and weird and surreal. However, I did watch it all, and I kept thinking to myself, if I was an average American watching this, hearing what Elon Musk is doing to federal overspending, I'd be cheering him on. I'd be all in favor of this.
Yeah, unfortunately, the average American, I guess, or the average person just has no idea how government works or functions. And I guess weird and surreal is just the way to describe now, or illegal, I guess, is the way to describe that this administration has decided to address programs that they don't like. If you want to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse, I don't think anybody would necessarily have a problem with it, but they keep saying waste, fraud, and abuse when what they mean is programs that I don't like, and already taken several almost certainly illegal actions in trying to basically unilaterally dismantle organizations like USAID that have been independently authorized by Congress that the president doesn't have the ability to do, to dismantle unilaterally. And now you've seen TROs coming out from the judiciary that's telling him, hey, you have to stop. There was the one on the federal spending freeze that not only was a TRO issued telling him that you have to stop freezing these funds. Now another judge has said you are violating the TRO. You need to stop this immediately. So I guess if you don't care about the legality or the process and procedure or anything having to do with the structure of government, I guess it's a cool thing. But if you care about like following the law or the rules or maintaining your government, then it would probably be a horrific thing. But
Andrew?
Yeah, you got this idea. I've heard Destiny kind of talk about this before. When he's saying, okay, these are illegal actions, and possibly the court's not going to be able to catch up with these illegal actions. And so Trump is just going to basically continue with what he's considering to be illegal actions. Thing is like people forget about things like jury nullification, or like the idea that you can have laws. And even if you're the enforcer of the laws, in this case, the executive branch, you don't actually have to enforce these things. There's no, like, you're put there for a reason. Just like a jury can nullify a law by saying, even though the law says you're guilty, I can still come back with a not guilty verdict. What's happening here is we don't even know what the waste, fraud, and abuse is. And so there's an audit going on, and this is exactly what Musk is doing. They're trying to audit this and get it in front of the attention of the American people to say, look, we don't want condoms for the Taliban. That was 15 million. Promotion of atheism in Nepal for 500,000. French LGBTQ programs in West and Central Africa for $1 million, right? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. $200 million 20 days in. I think that the American people do deserve to know that. And I don't think that they would, that this would be front and center or a thing we would be focusing on absent this audit. And I think that more of these government agencies should be audited. Now, Destiny can he can say, well, technically, due to the rule of law, we have judges who are making these impositions and this and that. It's like, yeah, that's fine. But that's all part of the process, too. It's all part of the process of law. The process of law is playing out exactly like it should. Judges are supposed to create injunctions if something illegal is going on, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing wrong, though, with auditing these places. And for the spirit of transparency, I think that leftists are just pissed for no good reason. Like they go, oh, Musk is collecting all these people's information. It's like unelected officials at the DMV are collecting my information. The unelected officials at the Social Security office are collecting my information. Like, so many government offices collect my information by people who I definitely didn't elect, and neither did Destiny. They're totally fine with that. But for some reason with these guys, no, that's too much.
That's a good point.
I mean, the reason,
that's a good point.
The reason why is because these things have been authorized by law. There's a process and procedure there. The Social Security Administration was created by Congress. There's a process and procedure by which they collect data, and they have a process and procedure by which they store data and who's allowed to access it. Elon Musk is definitionally an unelected bureaucrat who is now part of a shadow government who is going from agency to agency.
Wait a minute. Part of a shadow government? Isn't shadow government like deep state? Like, isn't that mean that they're like behind the scenes, like undercover? I mean, as far as I know, we all know Elon Musk is there, and we all know what he's been put there to do, and we all know what he's doing. How is this a shadow government?
Whatever he decides is necessary. In terms of there being transparency, all of this stuff was already publicly available. They've literally shuttered the USAID offices. What do you mean? They've literally frozen payments from the Treasury.
Yeah,
shuttered them as in they tried to give a mass recall saying all the employees needed to come home, which was stopped by a TRO, by a judge. And now a lot of these programs, there was just recently a report by the head of the Treasury guy, who now is fired, who was saying that there's a whole bunch of food and stuff that we've shipped to other countries. It's just going to spoil because now we've cut off funding and money for it. All of these things have just been unilaterally cut by Elon Musk and Trump without any authorization from Congress, despite the fact that Congress was the one that authorized the funds for these programs and authorized these offices and agencies. If you want to remove all of these things, that's fine. If you don't want $500,000 being spent for trans ballets in Nepal for atheists or whatever, that's fine. If you don't want it, then Congress has to defund it. That's the way that this process works. It's not up to the president unilaterally to decide what he likes or doesn't like. That's already been passed
hang on.
by the Congress.
Well, hang on.
It's not up to you.
That's actually, I was going to say, look, that's not actually correct. He's entitled to do this, and then there can be
absolutely not.
Well, hang on. Then there can be legal challenges, and Trump made it clear in the Oval Office yesterday he would accept what a judge said. Now, by contrast, I remember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when it came to the Texas ruling in a court by a judge about abortion medication, for example, she said that the Democrats should not accept what that judge had ruled. Right? So why is it one rule? Why is it one rule for Democrats that they can ignore a judge's order with impunity? But when President Trump says, if people want to challenge this, no problem, I would accept the ruling of the judge. Isn't that democracy?
What years was AOC the president of the United States?
What difference does that make?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because she's not in the position to do these things. She can give the advice on it. If you wanted me to ask myself, like,
she's an elected lawmaker who doesn't want to obey the law.
A lawmaker. She's in a different branch of government.
She's still in government, Destiny, and she's advising the president not to listen. That's insane. These Democrats do that all the time. They advocate for insane things. You always have Maxine Waters out there going ranting and raving and encouraging people to pretty much confront Republicans and right-wingers in the street. Now Destiny's just trying to play these games, like with the whole data thing. Well, there's procedures and this and that. Like, who cares? I don't care what procedures they use. They still have my freaking data that some shady guy who I can't see or I don't know can take that and use that for whatever reason that we don't know about. I mean, that's a few different agencies Andrew Wilson listed off that has our data. Any one of those could be hacked. Any one of those could have shady people that could use our data for nefarious purposes. We all know Elon Musk is there. We all know what he's doing. It's been very transparent. So they don't really care about this. They just care because it's Donald Trump bad, Orange Man bad, Elon Musk's bad. And in terms of AOC, she's still like an elected official. She's still someone in government power that is going out and just saying like, oh yeah, I don't think we should listen to these judges. Like, who does that?
Legislature. We're not talking about the legislature. We're not talking about a random lawmaker right now. We're talking about the president of the United States doing things to intentionally contravene. You can't just say you could break the law.
President Biden did the same over student loans.
No, he absolutely didn't. When the Supreme Court shut him down in one thing, then he took a different avenue. It was not the same. President Biden did not ignore temporary restraining orders and wasn't issuing TROs to stop what he was doing with the loan forgiveness. This is a totally different thing.
Yeah,
to say that
this
is not the same. It's not the same process.
Hang on, Destiny. I just
Vance and other people have said over and over. I'm still responding to Piers. Vance and others have made it clear over and over again. They've quoted the Andrew Jackson quote, and they've said, well, we should just resist the judiciary. It is not part of law and order. It's not part of checks and balances for the executive to say, well, I don't care what a judge says. We'll just do whatever, which is what they're currently doing. And a judge has already said they've done with the TRO that was placed on them having to do with freezing federal funding. So they've already broken with what the judges are telling them to some extent. And at the end of the day, there's no way to check and balance the executive if they're just going to do what they want to do. You have no checks and balances there. What are men in robes and lawmakers going to walk down and fight with the U.S. Marshals and the FBI? Like, it's not going to happen.
Andrew?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So there's an issue. What you have is an issue of authority. So Trump he's trying to expand the limits of his office as fast as possible, and I understand why. Last time he was there, they were trying to impeach him from basically day one, made up this phony Russian collusion nonsense. He comes in now, he has nothing to lose. He's going to expand his office as quickly as possible, try to move things as quickly as he possibly can. And most importantly, he doesn't trust the judicial branch. That's what he said himself in his various speeches. I don't trust them to give fair rulings. I don't trust that they're actually there in respect to actual law. He doesn't actually even believe that. So what he's doing is he's expanding as quickly. Hang on, my turn. So he's expanding it as quickly as he possibly can. But he did say that he would abide by the rulings of these judges. He just recently said this, and we don't know what's gonna come of that. Right now, he's expanding this office to try to figure out these audits, this type of thing. I don't see what he's actually done wrong. You're already panicking, but we haven't really had a chance to see what happens if he abides by these rulings, doesn't abide by these rulings.
Right.
We don't really know that yet.
Right.
Well, Doge in and of itself is probably a wholly illegal agency. I don't think that Doge even exists. I don't think they have the legal capacity to even do what Trump wants them to do, number one. Number two, bringing up the Russia collusion stuff is funny when the entire foundation for Hunter Biden and Burisma was entirely fabricated. That person's already been convicted by the FBI for lying about the origination for that. And three, Donald Trump was already found to have people who were working with him collude with Russia. Roger Stone did it, but he was pardoned by Donald Trump, the same way Donald Trump pardoned all 1,600 J6 offenders.
The same way that Biden
Biden
does the whole crime family, right? Pardons the whole crime family. But that's fine.
Oh,
yeah.
How many crimes have they committed?
And then pardons
Republicans had like 8
well, how
years
do we ever
to
know? They're all
investigate them and
pardoned.
found nothing. How do you know? You had 8 years to investigate it. What do you mean? How many special counsels?
Well,
how many
how did we have 8 years to investigate
They had nothing.
How did we have 8 years to
investigating him from his
How do we have 8 years to pardon Fauci when his crimes didn't become apparent, or I should say his alleged crimes didn't become apparent until after the whole 2020 debacle? That wasn't 8 years ago. That was only 4 years ago. And how could we investigate him when we weren't even in power then? So Destiny just flipping out, spurging out because he knows he's in the wrong here.
Biden was in office. They've been investigating this guy, Hunter Biden, over and over and over and over and over again, and they found nothing. That's why
I'm
the
not talking
charges
about
we got at the end of the day were for tax fraud. Well, for Joe Biden, they found nothing ever. They've been investigating
Destiny, hang on,
This isn't going to make your points any better. And I just want to make sure that we
Destiny, why-
get back to the actual point.
Destiny, if none of them have committed crimes, why do they all need preemptive pardons?
Yeah, they all need pardons.
Because Trump
though.
has shown over and over again that he doesn't need crimes to start chasing down people, and the Republicans have no problem hunting people down to try to go on fishing
And the
expeditions
Democrats
to find whatever
haven't
crime
been
they
doing
can
that to him
find.
for the last year.
Give me one example.
Stormy bloody Daniels. Honestly.
Did he break a law? Did he break a law?
What a
Also, that wasn't the
farce of a
federal government.
case.
That was the state.
Are
Okay,
you
so just
honestly
don't like the law.
happy
That's
that
fine.
the
You don't
only
like the law. If
time
you
an
don't like the
American
law,
hang on, the only
if you
time
don't
an
like the law,
American
you just
president
don't like the law.
has-
No, I don't care.
The
I don't care.
only
If you don't
time
like
an
the law,
American
just say
president was
that.
ever
Say, I
dragged
don't
through a
like the
criminal
law.
court was over a one-night stand with a porn star 20 years ago. Utterly
It
preposterous.
wasn't over a one-night stand. It was over misappropriating
Oh,
campaign
come
funds
on,
and then creating
Destiny.
a paper trail. You can, if you don't like the law, that's fine.
You've had presidents like Obama waging illegal drone programs, killing thousands of innocent people. Why is he not in a criminal
Illegal as
court?
per who? Illegal as per who? Which crimes? What are we talking about?
You don't think
You
illegal
can't
drone
just say
programs
illegal
are criminal?
because it sounds illegal as per who?
Oh, you think they're
You just say
lawful?
illegal because it sounds bad. Apparently so.
What
Yeah,
about the illegal invasion of Iraq by George Bush?
What are we talking about for illegal invasion? Illegal
I'm
as per
talking
what
about crimes.
Which crime? Which crime? What crime
A
are you talking
bigger
about?
crime
For
than
New York
sleeping
State,
with a
it was a
porn
crime
star.
that misappropriated campaign funds.
I'm making
What?
the point. The only time an American president has ever been dragged through a criminal court was not over running illegal drone programs or illegally invading sovereign countries. It was over an alleged one-night stand with a porn star
these
that
are-
involved a bit of paper shuffling. It was completely ridiculous.
You have strong feelings about what you think should be a crime or not, but if you don't care about the law, there's no legal argument to be had then. If you just think it's a crime because it's bad and you don't like it, or if you think it's a crime or it's not a crime because you don't think it's a big deal, that's fine. But I mean, like, if you want to have the legal argument,
logic for you. As
if you want
long
to
as
talk about
bad things are done via the process of law, that's fine. But if you do good things
saying it
absent
was
the process
fine.
of
I'm
law,
saying-
that's bad. It's like, what are you talking about, man?
I know.
Dang, that was perfect. Yeah, exactly. If I do bad things within the law, well, that's good. But if I do good things outside of the law, that's bad. Oh, perfect line there by Andrew Wilson. That was well said.
Here's my chain of logic. I know it's hard to follow. If you are a criminal, it's because you've broken a
Talk
law.
real slow.
Not all bad things are criminal, okay? Not all bad things are crimes. You can think somebody did a bad thing, but they didn't commit a crime. Donald Trump committed crimes in New York State, probably committed crimes insofar as Georgia is concerned, and he's committed federal crimes insofar as the Mar-a-Lago documents case was and the J6 case was. He won't be held accountable for all of that, thankfully, because he's dismissed it. He does everything he can to elude accountability, but those are crimes. If you want to say, I don't like the war in Iraq and that's illegal, illegal as per who? We could talk about the ICJ or the ICC if you want, but that gets obviously way more complicated.
No,
But
that
if you wanna
wasn't
say
what my point
illegal,
was.
you
My
have to
point
refer
was-
to crimes.
Yeah, it wasn't my point. My point was to say that from your view, you're only concerned about process of law
The
in
law,
this case,
yes, the
right?
law, yes,
Not about
correct,
not
yes.
hang on. Not about the moral implications of the actual waste, fraud, and abuse that is brought up. Only that the technical process is followed. So it's like, okay, but what if they're not following your technical process, but they're actually finding waste, fraud, and abuse from a moral implication? That's actually a good thing. Now, I don't even agree with you that they're breaking any laws. I don't even agree that they're breaking any laws. These challenges are brand new. We have no idea how this is going to play out. You don't, I don't. But we have no idea
We
if
have a
he's
good
going
idea.
to
We think we
adhere
can.
to what the court is going to say. No, we don't have a good idea. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's not. We don't know for sure that Trump is going to just go, oh, I'm just going to Jackson the courts. The courts can enforce their own law. Like, that is speculation that's beyond the pale.
They've
that I don't
already
even
done
think
that. A
there's
judge has
political
already
will.
issued a ruling saying they've already violated a TRO. So that's already happened to some extent. Now, how far will it go? Who knows? But they've already done exactly that. Doge does not have the legal authority to go in and unilaterally.
No, they're giving a legal
shutter
challenge
federal
back,
offices.
Destiny.
They have. They
Yeah,
didn't
they're giving
even
a legal
respond.
challenge back.
Read the TROs. Their response was, "Oh, we're going after fraud," and the judge laughed. And he said, "This isn't even a
That
response."
doesn't mean that doesn't. Wait. So yes, they are. Not only are they going to respond to this, but they're setting up for legal challenges to go back the other direction. This is obvious. And by the way, this is part of the process. Like, I don't know why you just pretend like these politicians don't expand their offices all the time. And that's what the judicial does, right? It comes in, it'll rein it in. It'll say this is constitutional. It's not constitutional. You can do this. You can't do this. They do it all the time. There's so much precedent for this, in fact. So if he doesn't adhere to what the judges end up saying, to what these courts actually say when he has no more legal standing to fight it, then you have a leg to stand on. Right now, you don't.
He's
right
already
now,
done that.
He's acting,
Okay, well, look,
he's acting the best he can
all right.
in the ability of the office of the President of the United States.
Chaps, we will see.
So the goal,
because
the goal should be to just break as many laws as possible then, and then see what happens.
no,
That's
Trump
the
has made
right
it clear
course
he'll
of
accept
action?
the ruling of the judges. If he doesn't, that's another.
I mean, we all know Destiny's full of crap here. And we all know he just doesn't want to admit anything the Democrat does bad. Donald Trump's the only president to face charges on anything he's done. It's always just Democrats never do anything wrong. And, you know, evil Trump bad. Anything Trump does is bad. Anything the Democrats does is good. And if you point out anything the bad Democrats does, it's always, but what about the Republicans? Destiny will never have a good faith argument for as long as he resorts to that strategy. And no one will take him seriously as far as that. Trump pardoned people for J6, and they freak out of it when Biden is pardoning people for 10 years of alleged crime, any crime they might have done. They're pardoned for the last 10 years. Like, what? Who does that? And Destiny tries to justify it as like, oh, well, then because they know they're going to go after him for any little thing. Oh, yeah, like how the Democrats went after Donald Trump for any little thing. Is it like that, Destiny? And then he goes, well, no, but Donald Trump committed a crime. Oh, okay. Well, what about the Democrats? The Democrats, so as far as Destiny logic goes, Democrats have never committed any crimes, never done anything wrong behind the scenes or anything like that. They're all perfect angels. And it's just that the reason Donald Trump is doing this is because he's just bad and evil and he's committed crimes. So it's justified. But every president, Republican and Democrat before that, they have been perfect angels, never done anything wrong. It was beautiful seeing Destiny spurg out. We haven't seen a Destiny spurg out in a while. He tried to keep his composure. The reasonable lefty Destiny tried to make an appearance here, but by the end, when he was actually challenged by Piers Morgan and Andrew Wilson, he couldn't handle it. This was great. I loved watching this. Andrew Wilson did a fantastic job again. If you like seeing more Andrew Wilson owning people in debates, I have a whole playlist for you. If you like seeing Destiny look like an absolute fool, I have a playlist for you there too.